Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Klown Hour podcast. I'm your host, Scott Burks. Please check out my sports blog, The Klown Times, at the www.theklowntimes.net. And also check me out on Facebook as well, where you're on your smartphone, desktop, laptop, wherever you are, wherever you may be. Just type in The Klown Times in the search window. You're able to find me there as well. And two more things. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've been putting out videos every so often, especially with this news about this crazy college football news going on with the season around the corner, as well as the ACC, BigTen, Pac-12 alliance, which we'll get into momentarily. So please feel free to subscribe. I know I'll be getting more subscribers lately, so that's awesome. That's great. But please continue to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the share button. Feel free to comment, please. I like that. Love the back and forth with the with you, the viewers and the subscribers as well. And also, one last thing, get the merch, kevinpress.com. Please search for the Klown Time Sports. You're able to find us there as well. So, as I alluded to earlier, college football season around the corner. And if you've been tuning into our past podcast, you remember one of the gentlemen here, who's my guest. They are from the All Sports Discussing ACC Sports blog. You can check them out on Twitter as well. They're going to get their Twitter handles momentarily. One is Jeff Fan to my left, and also Matthew Warner, aka Hokey Smash, at the bottom, making his debut. So, gentlemen, how are you?
Doing good.
Doing great.
It's good to have you guys on here. Like I mentioned when Jeff was on here a few weeks ago, Matthew, like, people familiar with the old format or the audio format, they remember you guys very well. But now this is the video version. And even though we get to see the Matthew logo at the bottom, you're on the video version, sir. So it's glad to have you on. It's glad to have Jeff back as well. So I'm gonna get right to it, gentlemen. As people know, we love our ACC, right? We all grew up in ACC country or attended ACC schools. So basically, like this coming weekend, well, actually next weekend, really, because this week is week 0. But ACC's play won't get started, the teams that is, until the following weekend, which we cannot wait for that as well. But before we get into the season preview, I want to touch upon this alliance. So basically, as you all go, like the SEC made this preemptive strike and poaching Oklahoma and Texas from the Big 12. So everyone and their mamas wonder, what are the other conferences going to do? How are they going to respond? Are they going to start poaching the leftovers, if you will, from the Big 12? Are they going to start poaching each other? What's going to happen? So basically, very long story short, Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby, who I feel sorry for, by the way, he met up with the Pac-12 Commissioner to speak upon an alliance as such, right? Only to have the same Pac-12 Commissioner hit up the Big Ten and the ACC Commissioner, Kevin Warren and Jeff Fields, respectively, and they formally announced their alliance yesterday. So the Big 12 is once again ass out on the outside looking in. So Jeff,
for him.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. It's like he has to kick me sign on the back of his shirt. I mean, Bob Bowlesby, God bless him. Woo. But anyway, I know he's gonna have a tell memoir. It's gonna be off the chain. But anyway, Jeff, I'm gonna start with you. We're gonna move to Matthew as well. Like, give me your thoughts on what this merger will mean to you, because to me, I know they talk about schedule, but that's like years down the road, because as we all know, football schedules out of conference are set up at least 4 or 5 years in advance. Mm-hmm. But basically it's matchups. And I want to touch upon in the article of The Atlantic momentarily, it talks about the impact of this alliance that comes to scheduling as well, and maybe marketability for TV networks. But give me your thoughts, Jeff, on this alliance and how big of a deal this is in college football.
I mean, I think the concept is good. The other 3 power conferences had to do something in response to the SEC. Because if the SEC had been left to their own, I mean, we could be looking at unlimited scholarships, playoffs with 6 SEC teams, NIL with no caps. I mean, it'd just be like a free for all, which obviously favors the SEC. So I like the idea that they're attempting something. I think they're going to try to take the place a little bit of the NCAA, who has absolutely no relevance now in college sports. Basically,
Right.
they've basically given up. So I think you need some kind of administrative body, and I don't know
Excuse
if
me.
it necessarily comes from these three, but they're going to at least attempt to try to rein some of this in. Now, for me, the real question is, is it going to have any teeth?
Mhm.
They don't have any signed contracts. Everything sounds, real kumbaya
Right.
yesterday.
Everything's
And
handshake.
everything's handshaking. And what I think is you're going to know if this deal really has any teeth in about a month. And that's when the playoff proposal is back up for discussion. And if they just basically go along with what was already decided by Greg Sankey, Jack Swarbrick of Notre Dame, Bob Bowsby, and I can't remember the other commissioner from the group of five who was part of the four when
Craig
they proposed.
Thompson.
Craig Thompson, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
If they stay with that proposed format, then I really question if there'll be any teeth to this alliance. So what I hope to see is that they come back and say, hey, wait a minute, we want to change some of these rules. And even if they don't necessarily make sense right off the bat, say they put out there, we're going to cap the number of teams to 3, or we're going to have auto bids for conference champions or something like that, just something that's like a significant change to the proposal. That'll get me to really start to believe like, hey, there's something to these 3 being aligned together, because they took the playoff proposal.
Right.
Now they looked at it as a block and decided to change some things significantly to it. So I'm kind of on a wait and see mode on this alliance. I like the concept. I think it's at least something in response to the SEC, but
Right.
let's see if they put any real action behind what they're doing. And the playoff proposal next month will be the first opportunity for that.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree. I mean, that's when because I think the reports are the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are pretty much on board with the expansion proposal. They may want to do less teams, but they want an expansion nonetheless because it will help. It will definitely help the Pac-12, right? So
yeah, for sure.
So I mean, it may not be 12, but it's going to be an expansion. That's what those two agree on. The ACC is pretty much a holding pattern, mainly because the influential coaches, i.e. Dabo Sweeney and Matt Brown, they're like, oh, hell no, we don't want it. So
I would like to see it go from 12 to 8, to be honest. I think 12 is too many. I think that opens up the chance of getting a 3-loss team in there, which, come on, that's not a playoff team. You lose 3 regular season games and you shouldn't be playing for the national title. But I think if they can go to 8, you have 4 auto bids, and then a group of 5, and then maybe 3 wild cards or something to that. I don't know how the Big 12 is going to figure on this, but a move from 12 to 8, I think would be, would show, hey, we've got some teeth to this.
Right. Matt, what say you, sir?
Well, look, and I kind of had a little conversation with Jeff about this on Twitter, right, guys? I mean, this is really, to me, it's more of a group of 3 parties that are kind of trying to stop this growing momentum of ESPN's conflict of interest with showcasing its greatest partner, what it appears to be in its eyes, its greatest partner, the SEC, every year. I know I sound maybe I sound a little sarcastic when I say that, but, I think they want to try and make sure that the college football playoff, and really college football in general, has more than one broadcaster in ESPN. I mean, ESPN has a huge conflict of interest with teaming up with the SEC.
Right.
And they just want to make sure that you've got these other parties that are at the table that can televise games, that can televise parts of the playoffs, that can do these other things. I mean, that's how I see it. It may be a short, simplified take. Jeff or Scott, you can probably add more to that, but it just seems to me that ESPN has shown that they're kind of in bed with the SEC right now, and that you've got to have these 3 other parties, at least, they may not have something contractual down, but at least they can go together in votes and try and tailor the system to something that's more their liking. I'd be curious on your guys' thoughts on what I had to say on that.
Well, I mean, not only is the SEC and ESPN's in bed with SEC, it's screwing the SEC. I mean, it's hitting it left and right, missionary, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's really, they're really getting it on. But I would say this, man. It's interesting, Matt, you touch upon, the other three parties. Like, keep in mind that, and you guys know this, I'm just saying this out loud. Keep in mind that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 had their deals coming up in 2-3 years from now, maybe 4. So basically, the Big Ten, especially, going to get another big ass piece of the apple, another big bite of the apple. So what I think is going to happen though is, I think, in response to what the ESPN is doing with the SEC, I think they're a Fox property anyway, right? Even though they have a portion of the games go to ESPN as well. I think Fox is going to look at this, if they're smart, and then Fox Sports, they're going to say, hey, why don't we sweeten the pot, sweeten the kitty, if you will? What if we give you blah, 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 right? Because with the Big 12 about to go to where the dodo, that decreases the inventory of games for Fox Sports. I mean, remember, like, every year the Red River Rivalry game, Oklahoma, Texas, that's a big deal for Fox Sports because they'll shoot out on the main Fox network at noon, like the last Saturday in October or whenever the Texas State Fair is. So the point is that Fox needs more inventory. So why not leverage that and try to go to the Big Ten? And maybe the Big Ten would, I'm sure they know that.
Yeah.
That Fox Sports needs more inventory, that ESPN could probably just suck it with them as far as they're concerned. The same with the Pac-12. They have both similar deals with both for Fox properties primarily, but they sublet their games as well to ESPN and to, like, the family networks, ESPN, ABC, all that stuff. So I think what's going to happen is, with at least those two, that Pac-12 and the Big Ten, is that they're going to just go all in with Fox Sports. That's what I think is going to happen. I think 4 or 5 years from now, when both their contracts are expired, TV deals expire, they're going to go all in with Fox. Now, the ACC, we're stuck for the next 15 years. And so we gotta play it cool. But I would say this, at least that gives us some time as far as stability, in the sense that, the grant of rights, no one's going to want to pay, like, I don't give a damn which, it was the SEC or Big Ten with deep pockets. They're not going to pay, like, basically, like for the years remaining on the grant rights deal, like the payouts, what, 30, let's say round down, say 30 million for each ACC team. So basically, no conference in its right mind is going to pay, let's see, 30 times 15 years, North Carolina mouth tells me it's $450 million. No one's going to pay that for one team.
No, nobody's leaving the ACC. I wouldn't even consider it until about 2030. But you guys both touched on a couple points that I think works somewhat to the ACC's advantage, or at least creates a little bit of leverage that they didn't have before. And okay, like you said, the SEC totally in bed with ESPN. Their big property. Fox Sports is going to try to retain the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and their next TV deals. And the big carrot that's out there for Fox and ESPN are the upcoming playoffs, which that is ending in 2025 or 26. So going back to that, where you see teeth, if they just agree with that proposal, I think ESPN can start negotiating to extend that deal. But if it's delayed, goes out to open market, okay, you got 2 Fox properties, 1 ESPN property, and 1 ESPN property, the ACC, that's kind of in the middle. If I'm ESPN and I want those playoffs, I'm going, hey, which way are you going to vote? ACC, and everything comes with a price. And a few weeks ago, everyone was wondering, how is Jim Phillips, the new commissioner, what does he have that can sweeten the pot? that long-term deal that you mentioned, Scott, 2036. Now he's got a little bit of leverage because he's part of that alliance. He's got the ears and of those two other conferences of trying to get ESPN for their playoffs. And if I'm Jim Phillips, I'm going to ESPN like, hey, make it worth my while. I don't care who gets the playoffs, but I can help try to get you the playoffs if you kind of sweeten the pot for me a little bit. And my teams who are stuck in this 15-year deal, undervalued deal. So
Right.
I think he's created a little bit of leverage where he had none before.
Yeah, and that's the first time I heard that, dude. That's a very good point because everybody, mom, including yours truly, we thought that the ACC, the only great thing about that terrible ass 15-year contract is that you have 15 more years on, which means that not a lot of teams going to want to move around. So we thought that was the only thing they had going for them. But now you touched upon a great point. So it creates an interesting dynamic with ESPN. Now, I would say this, guys. Being that Jim Phillips is a Big Ten guy, his roots are in the Big Ten. So we're basically the ACC went outside the family to get this guy. And it's turned out to be a damn good thing because of how he thinks. He came out and said during ACC Media Days, football has to be it. He said that more than once. Unlike the predecessor, the great John Swofford, he did a lot of great things for the league. He coached Miami, coached Virginia Tech from the Big East. We like to keep the ACC from becoming the Big East, to go to where the Big East. He saw it all coming. And Gene Corrigan before him saw all that coming when he coached Florida, when he convinced Florida State to come on board. But let me ask y'all this. All the good things that Josh Swofford did from the conference, done for the conference, right? Brought in a lot of these big ass media markets into the league, expanded the footprint to Syracuse, New York, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boston, Massachusetts, brought in Louisville, get the Midwest market. Something tells me that John Swofford wouldn't have gone along with the alliance because I think he's so basketball centric. He's old school that way. He's so basketball centric, I think. I think he made the moves of Syracuse and Pitt, not only just for the media markets as pertaining to Pittsburgh and in New York, but I think he had basketball in mind when he made the move. Not to say that he had other viable candidates, which he made up for in Louisville, by the way, as far as overall sports. So, Matthew, am I missing something here? Do you think that John Swofford would have gone along with this alliance, or do you think he would have just stood by the SEC's feet and ESPN's feet as he's done in the past?
No, I think he would have gone along with the alliance just simply because he knows, and like we all know, that football is the major, at least for most of the campuses, football is the major revenue driver. And in fact, in many cases, it pays for a lot of the non-revenue sports with its ticket revenues and TV revenues and things like that. So I'm certain that he would have gone along with that. And also, you brought up yourself that long-term contract that we have, that the ACC has right now, that isn't quite advantageous for us. And Jeff brought up good points where there's potential leverage for bargaining room right now. So I'm certain that he would have gone along with that alliance. And I'm also certain that, you didn't ask this, but I'm also certain that not signing any contracts right now gives them flexibility. It doesn't lock them into a deal. And if you're signing contracts or things like that, potentially, and you end up trying to poach other teams, then that can be like considered breaking a contract and things like that. So it's giving them some flexibility to move around when they need to, if the media market changes and things like that. So
yeah. How about you, Jeff? Do you think that that John would have went along with the alliance, even though he had previous allegiance to the SEC and whatnot?
I think that he probably also would have went with the alliance because what the SEC did was so such an earthquake move of getting Oklahoma and Texas. I think that he would have done something in response. and so from my understanding, it's like the Pac-12, Kliakoff, their commissioner, was the one who drove this, and
Yes, he did.
yep. And I think that Swofford would have been part of this. What I don't know if John Swofford would have done is, you said he did some good things, and he did do some good things. But I think a lot of the good things he did were like really reactionary things. They were
Yeah.
after somebody else did something, and then he did a pretty good job of kind of circling the wagons, so to speak. Maybe picking up another team like Louisville, that sort of thing. I think he was pretty good at that. But I'm not sure if he was ever really like a true visionary, like the way Jim Delaney was, when he had the opportunity to have a network,
Right.
13, 14 years ago. And even though it was the presidents who voted against it, I think, had he been like more visionary, he could have pushed for that. And so I think Swofford would have went with the alliance, but I'm not sure he would have looked at it as a leverage point with ESPN. And I think Jim Phillips will do that. I think he will. I think he's savvy enough that he'll look at it and say, hey, how can I use this alliance to somehow boost revenues in the ACC? Well, I think John Swofford will look at it like, I'm going to join this alliance because I'm more in favor of keeping the SEC from doing things. So I think he would have joined, but I have a feeling Jim Phillips is going to be a little more strategic in its future than I think Swofford would have been.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. One thing I do like about Jim Phillips, he's out. Not only was the outside the box hire, he's an outside the box thinker and what he's been saying. And
he came from the Big Ten, so they're very familiar with him. They trust him, which is something I'm not sure you would have that quite as much with Swofford, because I mean they know Jim Phillips. He came from Northwestern. All those other ADs and Kevin Warren, they all know him so well. I mean, they know John Swofford too, but maybe there's just not that level of trust that he would have had. Like Swofford seemed to, he did seem to be a little bit more tied in with what the SEC would be doing. So I think it's good that Phillips is the commissioner, at this point in time.
And one more thing, fellas, before we move on to the ACC season preview. We hadn't talked about the big ass, fat ass elephant in the room, and that's Notre Dame. So with basically with this playoff, like college football playoff expansion, it's no coincidence that the people in the alliance were not the ones hashing out the playoff proposal, right? You got, the people most of the people who on the proposal, all the people on the committee stood to benefit enormously, right? Jack Swarbrick from Notre Dame, because it gives them access. Because they have no reason to join a conference right now, because if this bad boy does go to 12, all Notre Dame has to do is lose less than 2 games. They get in. They're at least the fifth. They're at the very most the fifth seed, at least the 5th seed rather. Even if they said that throughout the caveat that, we don't have to host a game. We just want access.
Right.
They got access. I mean, again, the way Notre Dame recruits, the way the head coaches and recruits, I mean, they're going to be good for a while. I mean, I don't see them losing more than 3 games in the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. So just say for the sake of if it came to pass next year, they have access. So they have no incentive to join the conference. The SEC, they have with 12, they have it'd be like the top 6 conference winners, regardless of Power 5 or Group of 5, and 6 at-larges. So basically, you got in addition to Alabama, you have Oklahoma, you have Georgia, Florida, A&M, LSU. That's 5 damn good teams. Okay, so again, there's 6 at-larges, 5 damn good squads from the SEC, right? So at the worst, they'll take at least 2 or 3 of those, probably 3. So which leads to the other three. Notre Dame, they figure they're gonna get the other one. So, and then obviously Craig Thompson from the Mountain West, basically, the highest 6 conference winners, regardless of Group of 5 or Power 5, he stands to benefit as well from access. Mainly, I think Cincinnati would benefit more than anybody, but that's not here or there. But this is big, Matthew, because again, if Notre Dame's out there, if they don't have, if the Pac-12 or Big Ten and ACC goes, yeah, we like this expression, but yeah, 12 is too much. I feel better at 8. We feel better at 8. That's 3-1. That's 3 conferences to 1 in the SEC. So that's going to be have some interesting dynamics. But this is, again, Jeff alluded to it, Matthew, very strategic, and this is where it's going to get fun.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting come the playoff, and that's another thing. I think Phillips is going to he's going to put that in such a way that Notre Dame may not quite have the access as with that first proposal. I mean, I think he's a guy who's going to think 2 steps ahead, where Swofford might have been, hey, I'm going to be nice to everyone. And I think Phillips is going to kind of look at it like, hey, wait a minute now, maybe we'll go for some auto bids. Maybe we're going to reduce it to 8. I don't know. I just have a feeling that, what does he have to lose? Either, Notre Dame's locked into 2036. The conference is locked in for another 10 or 15 years.
Correct.
Why do you want to give Notre Dame more playoff access? And what do you have to lose by putting it to them? They got nowhere to go either.
Yeah. So there you have it.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's jump right into it. The previews, the ACC preview, like you guys have on the blog right now, the best of worst case record for most of the teams the ACC right now is for Syracuse football for 2021. I encourage all your viewers to check the blog out. It's really informative. You'll learn a thing or 2 or 3. So I'm gonna give you guys my 2 division winners. And we all know Clemson's going to win the whole damn thing again, right? So we're not going to worry about that. We'll skip that obvious part. So we're going to focus this suspense on the Coast Division and give out 2 dark horses, right? Teams not to be slept on. For me, the Atlantic goes without saying. So we'll go to the Coastal. Clemson's going to win the Atlantic. Everyone has Carolina winning the Coastal. I understand why. You got Sam Howell back. Matt Brown is still recruiting like a mother. But it's something about Miami. And I've been on the Miami train too damn much for my ticket. Because they got the talent, they got the market, they got everything there. It's just missing that one thing. I think something tells me, and I know that Carolina just beat the crap out of them at the Orange, I've almost called it the Orange Bowl, Hard Rock Stadium last year. I just think Miami is going to be really good. I think they're going to be on a mission. I think Derek King is on a mission. He's healthy, and of course they got the Alabama game out of the gate. So hey, it's no shame of losing to Alabama. It's just how you look against Alabama. So if they look good against Alabama, I would be bullish on Miami the entire year. But look at the schedules. I think Miami plays Michigan State this year, if I'm not mistaken, as well in Miami.
Yep, and Appalachian State in that first 2 or 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, Appalachian State's good. So we got 2 out of the 3 teams are very good. So it won't be the cakewalk for Miami. I don't think Carolina's ready for it. I think Carolina had this chance in primetime last year. They lost to Florida State on the road. They lost to Virginia at Virginia. Virginia seems to have their number for some reason when they go to Charlottesville. So I'm going Miami, barely eking out Carolina. But my dark horses would be, and of course, like I said, Clemson's won the whole game. Unless someone gets snared up in the bear trap somewhere, I got Clemson winning again. But my dark horses are Pittsburgh and Boston College. I think that people are sleeping on Pitt's quarterback. He's been in the system for the last 3 years. They're getting some offensive talent. They play well defensively. And I really love what, I forget the name of the guy who's coaching Boston College. He came from Ohio State.
Halfley.
Halfley, yeah. I
Yep.
really love what he's doing.
Yep.
And their quarterback is pretty good himself. And they play old school, to get in your face and knock you around, to blow your nose on defense. They're very good in the trenches of both sides of the ball, the Eagles are. So, and I lied. I got one more dark horse, NC State. I really love what they're doing. They got almost all their guys coming back. I hope Devin Leary is healthier. And, you know, to me, it would shock me at the end of the year, we have 5 teams in the ACC ranked in the final college football playoff poll. It wouldn't shock me one bit. It wouldn't shock me to see NC State in there. I think NC State's going to be in there. They got everybody coming back. But it wouldn't shock me to see Pitt and Boston College in that poll, because I think those two are going to be pretty damn good. I think they're both 8 and 9 win teams. So those teams are who I got. Jeff, what say you?
I'm there with you most of the way, Scott. Most of the way. The one
Almost.
I don't know, almost. The only one I'm not sure I'm with you on is Pitt, and I know Pickett is back.
Yes.
But Pitt is just, I mean, they're a 5-loss machine right now. Every year they find a way. It doesn't matter what the expectations are.
Mm-hmm.
They end up losing 5 games, at least 5 games. I think it's some crazy streak. Like I know Narduzzi has lost at least 5 every year. And
Right.
I think in their history it's up to 11 years or something crazy. And it doesn't matter how the season starts. I mean, they could open up a season and lose to 2 terrible teams and then end up knocking off a couple top 10 teams. They find a way to just go, 6-6, 7-5. And so Pitt is the one I can't quite get behind, but everything else you said, I'm totally on board with. I mean, I think it's going to take some kind of, crazy event for Clemson not to win the ACC again, just like a rash of injuries or just something crazy. But I and Matthew and I talked about it a lot. I mean, we both love Boston College. Like you said, we think they're great. Both think they're great in the trenches with that offensive line. They got a good quarterback. Your COVID coming back. Zay Flowers, all ACC wide receiver. I mean, they got a lot of talent coming back on offense. And a not very daunting schedule. I definitely agree that could be a top 25 team. I like NC State. They've got a ton of returning talent.
Yes, they do.
Like you said, Leary, Bam Knight, really good at running back. Emeka Amizi, am I remembering the name right? Yeah, back at wide receiver. Wilson at linebacker. They might have the best pair of linebackers in the ACC at NC State, and coming off a season where they built a lot of momentum. So I mean, I could see NC State also having a top 25 team. And then I agree with you that Miami and North Carolina are going to be probably the 2 best teams out of the Coastal. I mean, they have 2 really good quarterbacks with Sam Howell and De'Aaron King. It's really tough to split between the 2. And you mentioned a couple of the points. Is North Carolina really ready for prime time? And not necessarily Sam Howell. I think he's just fine. But as a whole team, because that game they lost to Florida State was, I mean, that Florida State was they were awful last year. I mean, they were, maybe only Syracuse was really worse than Florida State. And they went down to Tallahassee as a top 5 team and just were completely, flat in that game for a half. Tried to, mount a furious comeback and couldn't close the deal. But there again, they went down to Miami, played great. I think I'm a slight North Carolina lean, but just by a fraction, just because I think they are building up that talent base with Mac Brown. I know they lost a lot of guys on offense, but as good as De'Aaron King is, and I think he's fantastic, it's hard for me to bet against probably a top 10 NFL pick at quarterback, and with Sam Howell and what they're kind of building at North Carolina. But like you said, you got to see, will they show up, in those primetime games when the lights are shining, brightest, and then the moment, not coming up from behind, when they, like you said, Florida State, top 5 team. I mean, they were ready to take off and then just fell flat. When they get in that position again, are they going to be able to close the deal? But I'm a slight North Carolina lean, winning the Coastal, and then still Clemson winning it all.
Okay. Matt, what say you, brother?
Okay, so I think I'm probably going to sound like a broken record here with you all, right? But Clemson is obviously going to win the ACC. I do believe that North Carolina is going to win the ACC Coastal. I think that, when you have the best quarterback in the league, or at least on that side of the division,
yes,
and maybe the league, guys. I mean, I like Clemson's quarterback a lot, and I think that he will be making some. I think Clemson's quarterback will be making some Heisman noise. But I also think Sam Howell will as well, and I think that I'm not so certain. I want to see De'Aaron King get on the field, and I want to make sure that he's completely healthy before I make any big leaps about how they're going to be doing this upcoming year. You know what I mean? I mean, reports seem to be good, but I want to see how well he can run on the field before I make any big leaps about him. Like, we know what we're getting with Sam Howell. I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm getting with him on the field. I'll talk about the other parts here. I mean, you guys talked about, you brought up the battle for second place in the Atlantic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I had to go with second place I'm going to make big news here tonight. I'm going to go with Boston College. I'm going to go with Boston College as the second place team in the Atlantic, simply because NC State has to play both North Carolina and has to play Miami.
Yep.
Right. And I think that, and it's, perhaps North Carolina State, can pull one of those off, but they have I think they probably have the tougher go there. Right. And,
sure.
When Jeff and I wrote up that all ACC team, right, for Matt Zemek for Lindy's, the offensive line at Boston College is just freaking unbelievable. I literally wrote this up, Jeff, and I said, Jeff, you got to check this. I've got 4 guys from BC on the first team.
And when I saw it, I couldn't even argue with it. I'm like, I don't think I changed anything, Matthew.
Yeah. I looked at him like, am I really doing this? I had to have somebody go back and double check me, and Jeff did, and he did. And so that I guess that's where I say, I'm really high on BC, and I think that they will have a good offense. They will score a lot of points, and they have a favorable schedule too. So, I think that people are going to be happy up there. I want to talk to you about Pitt. I'm not on the board with you, Scott.
Oh, I'm
not on board. No, but here's why I say that, right? And no, I'm sorry, man. But here's why I say that, because it seems like, I'm not sure they're going to be able to keep Kenny Pickett upright.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like Jeff and I wrote, it seems like last year, Pittsburgh had just amazing guys on the trenches on both sides of the ball, right? On the offensive line and the defensive line.
Right.
Yeah. I think he's going to get hit a lot this year. And so I'm not necessarily certain that they're going to be all that great. If I were going to, I just happen to think it's possible that we're going to see a lot of really interesting action below Miami and North Carolina, the Coastal, and it's going to be one of the slobber fests where you're not sure who's going to win each week, because and I'll give you a good example here. If Virginia Tech were somehow to be able to pull an upset in that first game against North Carolina, it could be, they could actually pull some momentum, momentum and start out through the schedule pretty well. And all of a sudden, if you find a team like that has momentum and is feeling pretty hot, they could get on a roll. Or they could lose and just get absolutely drilled by North Carolina in that first game. And all of a sudden you can find themselves not willing to show up each week. Right. So it's going to be I'll be very interested. I'll be very interested to watch the magic go around in the ACC Coastal this year.
Well, Virginia Tech. Yeah. Is it possible that this could be the last season for Justin Fuente? I mean, he came in and all this fanfare, Jeff, taking the Memphis Tigers football program to heights, to unprecedented heights. Yep. Had a good first couple of seasons in Blacksburg for Virginia Tech, and has fallen the hell off ever since. So, is it possible that Justin Fuente could be out of a job after this season?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you like my couple sentence answer, because I know Matthew is gonna have a lot of thoughts on this.
His Hokies.
His Hokies. He's gonna have a lot to say about it. But I do think he's coaching for his job. I totally agree. When he came from Memphis, it looked like a can't miss hire.
Right.
And I think everyone was on board with the hire. So I don't think very many people can say, oh man, this was a bad hire from the beginning, because it looked like a great hire, and the first 2 years went very well. But just through a variety of circumstances, team chemistry issues, injuries, some issues at quarterback, it just hasn't went well the last few years. And Virginia Tech is a place where they expect more, and they should have more than what's been shown the last few years. So I do think he's coaching for his job, and he needs to get off to a fast start. I mean, if they're sitting around 500 midway through the season, the heat's going to be on him big time.
Right. How about you, Matthew? I know you have a lot of things to say about your beloved Hokies. So.
Oh well, yeah, I could probably sit and talk for hours about this, but there's a debate on whether 8-4 is going to save his job. I hear it. I hear, guys, I hear so many things from the fan base, right? I hear he needs 9-3 to save his job. I hear he needs 8-4. Some people are saying it's 7-5, but you can't lose to UVA. That's a caveat. Because so there are so many things, but let's just put this out there, right? Because you could have a lot of teams that could have vacancies next year, right? Michigan is one, and I think I saw an article out there. I mean, the SEC had, Jeff knows it. Jeff knows this because we talked about this several times. The pandemic, everybody thought people were going to stay safe. No, Auburn fires their coach, right? I mean, people throw their money around, but if you're going to fire somebody, right? If you're going to fire somebody, you've got to have a plan in place to hire a good coach. And by the way, I'm glad you guys both brought this up. It would be revisionist history for anybody to say otherwise, that Fuente was a bad hire. That was praised nationally. It went through a lot of good, a lot of good press. I think what the interesting thing about Fuente is that he's never had the same starting quarterback for more than a year and a half. Right? I mean, isn't that crazy?
Wow.
That's pretty crazy, isn't it? But it's
hard
true.
To win without that. It's hard to win without a consistent starting quarterback. I would give you that.
Right. You can't do it if you can't. You just can't. You can't. You can't be a consistent program if you don't have a consistent quarterback behind center.
Correct.
And so I if I had to guess today, he would be around at 8-4. He'd be around at 9-3. I would advise him not to be 500. But then I have people in the fan base that say that he's going to be around. But I doubt it. I doubt very seriously that he will be around if he has less than 8 wins. I just don't see it.
Do you see him having more than 8 wins? I know you looked at the schedule 1,000 times. So do you?
Man.
That's not.
Yeah.
Ask him at the end of September.
Boy, I change my mind every day, guys, on what I think can happen. Today, I'm sitting at 7-5.
Okay.
But I'm very pessimistic, right? I mean, but Jeff knows I've generally been on, right? So today I'm sitting at 7-5, and I think one of those wins will be versus the University of Virginia. But
you got Richmond, Mountain, and Middle Tennessee State, Richmond. You're at West Virginia, so that could be tricky.
Right. That's a coin flip. Right. And so I figure Duke is going to be a win. I figure Pitt is probably going to be a win because I think that they're not going to have any trouble sacking the quarterback that day.
Right. Syracuse might be a win too. You guys,
I think they will. I think they will as well.
Yeah.
But there are going to be some noticeable L's on that schedule. And Notre Dame certainly is one. So I mean, it'll be interesting for me to see how that all goes. I mean, that first game is really the biggest one for Virginia Tech, because maybe all of North Carolina's offensive weapons that aren't quite ready, and Virginia Tech's had a full season in that new off season and that new defense, and there are no COVID discrepancies right now, and quite frankly, they have some of the best corners in the ACC.
Yes.
And so it'll be interesting for me to see how that all goes. I'm not sure what the running game's like from North Carolina, so everybody's going to be ready to go for that first game. And if they win that first game, perhaps the equation changes, Scott. I think there's really a lot riding on the entire season for that first game for Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that big of a game, I think, for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I agree. This is a pretty much put up a shut up right out the gate.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, and if it goes well, the whole season could turn on a dime.
Right.
So I personally expect more after 6 years.
Right.
I do. I do. I expect to have consistent quarterback play. I've never seen a quarterback for more than a year and a half, like I was saying, right? I see Quincy Patterson, who's probably going to be starting at North Dakota State University, and I'm probably going to see him in the NFL. If I had to guess, right, because they seem to train their quarterbacks pretty well up there, right? He transferred up there. I think the starter. Refresh my memory, Jeff. The starter. Oh, God, what? I just lost his name. He's going to start transferred to Tennessee. Gosh, do you remember his name, Scott? God, I'm sorry.
Nah, I'm sorry.
Oh man. The Hokie transferred to Tennessee, but
Hendon Hooker.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. And I sat there thinking, forgetting it. I think he's probably going to start there. Right. And so there's no depth at the QB position for Virginia Tech right now. And so if Braxton Burmeister gets hurt, the Hokies are in a world of trouble.
Right.
So I expect more. I'm sorry. I expect more after 6 years. So first game, man, watch out, because that's gonna set the entire tone for the entire season.
And you know what? I'll close the show on this. And I forgot to mention this earlier. I saw a tweet, and I think you guys had on your sports blog that someone accidentally found the ACC Network on Comcast. So given that, that I think that everything expires at Comcast with the ESPN family networks at the end of August. So do you guys, is it going to be, are we going to have the ACC Network on Comcast?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You think so, Jeff?
Yeah, I think it was kind of funny. I actually, the first tweet about it was a Virginia fan. I think Mike Lewis was his name. Sir, I can't remember his complete Twitter account. Tweeted it, and then Matthew, went and confirmed it right away, because I think you're a Comcast Infinity customer, and so then it just exploded. Everyone saying, "Oh, I've got it on Comcast," and then the next day they're saying, "Oh, it was just a test and a glitch," and it's like, okay, that just doesn't happen. That's not a glitch. You're preparing to have the ACC network on Infinity, so I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion, which is great news for the conference.
Right.
I think the only question is, are they going to have it, finalized before the opening games of the season, or as some others have wrote, it could be September. But that was really good news for the ACC when it gets finalized. I think I've seen a couple numbers that they think it could add anywhere from because of the number of subscribers from Infinity. Comcast would add somewhere between the neighborhood of $3 to $6 million to each team. That's just kind of a ballpark figure, but yeah, they're going to get, Comcast is getting the ACC network,
and that would mean a lot more money for the conference.
Yeah,
it was interesting because, like Jeff said, I mean, like once I mentioned it, then all of a sudden our friend AJ Black, who runs the Sports Illustrated Locked On BC podcast, spread that word around Twitter, and all of a sudden it just freaking exploded. I mean, because there's so many Comcast subscribers in Virginia, Scott.
Yes, and Georgia too.
It's the number one cable provider in our state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've got 2 ACC teams here, right? I mean, I just learned this the other day that like the Northern Virginia, the Washington D.C. metropolitan statistical area now is the 6th largest MSA in the country. It just went ahead of Philadelphia. You know what I mean, in terms of number of people, right? And so there's a lot of TV sets here that are where you see Comcast on it, and you'd see the ACC network coming as a result, right? I mean, Virginia Tech's largest alumni base is up here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, I mean, it's just, I just think they will get it done. They will get it done. And like Jeff said, it's going to add a lot of revenue to our coffers.
Yeah.
There's a funny story I thought from that night. I mean, it was kind of neat seeing like ACC fans from up and down the conference who are on Infinity Comcast saying, "Oh, I can see it." And "Oh, I've waited for this moment." And then there was it was pretty neat actually. But what was funny is someone from South Bend saying, I still can't get the ACC network, obviously a Notre Dame fan. And I'm thinking here, okay, Notre Dame can't get their first football game. It's on a streaming service. Didn't get the ACC network in Infinity. Like, okay, sounds great being independent. Can't watch any of your sports if you're a Notre Dame fan. Now, I don't know. They may end up getting it, but that was what I thought at that moment. When the South Bend guy said, I'm not able to get it on my Comcast Infinity.
That's a cruel trick. But hey, if people having a sense of humor about it, must be imminent. And again, Jeff Phillips, we believe him as a commissioner. I think he's going to do great things for this conference. I'm excited for his tenure. I know you guys are excited for his tenure. It's going to be interesting to see how he's going to leverage this alliance with the BigTen, the Pac-12, as pertains to the ACC network. As it pertains to their enhance the media contract, and maybe measure Notre Dame a little bit.
Yeah,
poking them in the side. Hey, we're here.
Yeah,
come on, baby. But anyway,
what's it worth it to you to keep being independent?
I know. Come on in. Come home to daddy. Anyway, hey guys, it's been fun. Thanks a lot, guys. I know we're going to talk throughout the season. I know there's this thing called basketball that's maybe a couple months away, so they're going to get together on that. But it's going to be a fun season. It may not be fun it may be anticlimactic for who's going to win first place in the ACC football. But hey, it's football. It's fun. I know I'm excited. I know you guys are excited. So it's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Thanks again for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks so much for inviting us.
Thanks
All
for
right, thank
having us.
you.
Take care.
All right,
Bye.
you too. All right, so please check us out on YouTube. Please subscribe. Check out my blog, theclowntimes.net. Get the merch as well, CavalryPress.com. Search for Clown Time Sports. The link will be in the description underneath this video when I upload this to YouTube tomorrow. As always, take care, wash your hands, wear a mask, be safe. Peace out.